Hi, I'm James Varlak.
I'm Rosie Flugel.
And I'm Gonzalo Sandoval.
And I'm Ann Vega, and welcome to the EdTechBrew. This is our first episode. I'd like to welcome Carl Hooker, who will be here. He's our special guest today. And Carl, we want to start off this first podcast talking about things, things that are brewing in EdTech. And I think one thing that we're always kind of laughing about is what you shouldn't do in a meeting, or what you try to avoid, right? So let's start off with that. I think the dogs barking at the beginning is one of those things, right? I mean, it's like you can't help that.
I thought that was an amazing sound effect. I don't know how you made that happen. That was it was like right in the middle of it. Yeah, I do think that's interesting. We've been doing virtual meetings for decades, or almost a decade, but it's not till now that we all realize like we're all in it, right? We're all in this world.
Yeah.
So some of the things you got to watch out for with Zoom meetings, of course, there's all sorts of fun things that are happening out there. And I do think, as educators, we see a lot of things that we probably shouldn't see. But one of the ones that a friend of mine shared with me just recently was they were having a board meeting in, I believe it was in Pennsylvania. And they had all the board members on their Zoom calls. And I think one of the board members, she thought that she had turned her camera off. So she kind of turns the camera a little bit kind of out of the way, moves the laptop, and her daughter's in the room with her, like a teenage daughter, who I think realizes that the camera's not off. Not off yet. So she goes over and she starts folding her clothes and her laundry while she's doing the board meeting. I think, okay, well, she's just going to do laundry, I guess, during the board meeting, which first of all is like, people are kind of like talking and wondering. Well, in the middle of folding her laundry, she decides that she needs to change her bra as well. And so the daughter, I think, is aware of it. So the daughter like does her best. Like she gets up and does like the flossing dance, like to block the camera a little bit. And the mom's like, what are you doing? She's like, I think they can see you. And the guy in the board meeting, I remember just his mouth goes, and what was I talking about? Like you could just tell. So yeah, unfortunately, we've all experienced a lot of this in education, especially this year. So I don't know, what are some fun things that you guys have seen out there? Some crazy things that have happened on Zooms or things you've heard about?
I've actually seen where you're in a meeting and, kids, kids are in shorts and no shirts, right? So they're just walking around and you can see, and you can just see the mom's face just kind of like, like, oh no, I'm on live right now. So anyway, sorry, Gonzalo, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say that one time I was doing a training and I had a staff member getting after their kid. And I'm assuming that she didn't know that her mic was unmuted. She went up on the kid. She was like, oh man. So I had to a few seconds later say, can you please mute your microphone? Yeah. So we have to do that at times, remind them that they might unmute the mic without them knowing or remembering that it's unmuted. And so it's a good practice to remind them every so often during a training.
Right. I've gotten the same, a lot of scolding of pets and your children, husbands even. Mute is our best friend. I think anytime we enter a meeting, we need to remember just by default, put it on mute,
Yeah, I think so too. I know I have to fess up to a fallacy that I had. One day my kids were doing PE, and for some reason, instead of just, we train them, turn off the mic, turn off the camera. If you need to bring the laptop to us. For some reason, they had the camera on and the mic on, and they just showed our entire house. And, it was great. And coach was like, man, you have a really cool front door. And I was like, what? And then, so I kind of lost it a little bit. I got a little upset, I had to apologize to him or whatever. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think as long as you're on a virtual setting, in the end, one way or another, something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Everyone that you've got your whole family at home. Are you at home right now, Carl?
Yeah, I am. In fact, we just put in, you'll be able to see it on the podcast. You guys can see it, but there's actually some office doors I just put in over here because our office, when we built this house, we had this little office right next to a playroom, which doesn't really seem like a big deal until your kids are remote and you're trying to record 6-hour-long PD sessions from this room. And all of a sudden, they're just making all sorts of racket. And like, I'm not bringing my kids to work today, but I will tell you, James, I had a similar situation where my daughter, we set out this school year like, okay, you guys are each going to have your own little room, and that's where you're going to learn from. And as the days have gone on, they've all started drifting into other parts of the house. And like, I'll go downstairs. He wanted the kitchen table eating her breakfast while she's on her Zoom call. And then The worst one was the other day. I came out of the shower and my daughter was in our bedroom doing her Zoom call in our bedroom. And I'm like, luckily it was a Chromebook, forward-facing Chromebook. Otherwise, the third graders might have had an anatomy lesson they would never have forgotten. But yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, you just don't know these days what people are going to see or do in the background. And I think virtual backgrounds are great for that too, because it kind of shields some of that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I know this platform that I'm trying out does not allow for backgrounds. And I've already contacted them and said, come on, guys, get with it. We definitely need backgrounds. I know another thing, like I've been on calls with teachers and I've seen them sitting on their bed. And there's a part of me that wants to say, like, I sure hope when you're in front of the class that is not the norm. Like you still have to have your professional dress. And okay, I don't know about you guys, I'm talking from the waist up, like you're professionally dressed from the waist up, right?
Right.
You've got your slippers on, one thing, at least I do. But it's just one of those things that you just
have shorts on here. Got the suit up top though. That's important.
Exactly. And that reminds me of that commercial. I forgot what it is. The thing about the insurance guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He comes in, he goes, I thought this was a Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah.
He's like, no.
Nope, wrong one.
So dress professionally, that's definitely dress for the meeting that you're having.
Right.
Yeah, no. And sometimes we see a lot of people checking themselves out on the Zoom meetings. Yeah, exactly. Like check yourself before we get started, please, not during, beginning, middle, and end. We know you look good. Just check it before we start. And just dress appropriately.
Carl, at the very beginning of the year, we had a training and there were 750 people on that training.
Wow.
And I made the mistake of it was a Zoom meeting, of not making everybody stay muted. And so 5 minutes in, people are like, hey, can you slow down? Hey, hi, Miss Vega. How you doing, Miss Vega? And I'm like, oh my God.
What? They take over. It's hard to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was crazy. Okay. So now you've got a green screen.
I'm playing with something here. This is which is MMHMM. And it's an app that you can use. I've used it with Google Meets now because I need the virtual backgrounds. And so it's not perfect. You can see it kind of looks pixelated there. But basically, it's a way to make your own virtual background if you have a website that doesn't do virtual backgrounds, like Zoom and Teams. Of course, all of them have virtual backgrounds now. But
sure,
fun free tool.
Well, that's good. That's good.
A little glitchy. But speaking of these, I was thinking too the other day I was talking to a friend of mine who I won't mention, but I think some of you guys may know him because he's actually presented in your district. He was telling me about the dreaded meeting that could have been an email and how that's all become like. Even now that we're meeting virtually, it's like some administrators still feel like we need to all get together and all be on the same meeting. And then there may be 20, 30 of us, but it's going to be each one of you is going to check in for 5 minutes and tell us what you're working on. Okay, now tell us what you're working on. Now you tell us what you're working on. And I'm like, that could have been so handled better now that we're virtual. But do you guys experience that still? Are you still seeing sometimes there's meetings that could be converted? I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't want you to get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, and what's hard is that some of our meetings literally have 140 to 170 people. And so when you've got that many people, I don't know about you guys, but I'll notice that someone says hello or goodbye, and then 60 people do it. So bye, bye. Yeah. So I mean, it's because in person you would do that, right? You're leaving the meeting, you're saying good, hello or goodbye. But when your computers, sometimes I'll have to go in and mute a meeting just so that I don't have that constant, notification.
Right.
Like or the beginning, good morning. That's the other thing. Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. It's not that they can see you there on the team or on the meeting. It's like you have to say good morning, James Warlock here. Okay. Okay.
And then they ask, "Where's that presentation link?" Well, it's about 40 good mornings back.
Up on the chat. It's
Go back.
Chat. Yeah.
It's in the chat.
So you keep you repost it over and over again. You're like, okay, I reposted it again. Yeah.
Another pet peeve of mine for sure.
The best I saw was a friend of mine did this trick, and it's very much like I shouldn't be admitting this in public, but what he basically did is he recorded himself for about 15 seconds looking at the video and kind of just smiling, not making a lot of movements. and then he put it on a loop, and then that was his virtual background. And so and it was of course a kid taught him that. So he was like, oh, so when he was in this meeting with like 100 other people, administrators, it's basically just him kind of nodding the whole time and looking, but you don't want to make sudden movements because they'll catch the loop. They'll know that like that scene in Speed where like the lady puts her purse down. So I was like, God, what a great idea. He goes, yeah. So he sets that and then he just walks away and listens to it, and in another side, which I thought was interesting.
Try that one of these.
You got to try.
He's going to change his. He has to change his wardrobe though.
Oh yeah, it's true. Because like every time he shows up, he's always in that same outfit. Yeah.
Which it could be possible. I know Oscar, whenever he has court, now he's got jeans on. He goes to the office. He keeps a coat and a tie there, and just wears a white shirt. So I'm sure if you've had multiple meetings, you're probably like, wasn't he wearing that last time? Yes, he was.
This is laying right behind me. I just put it on before I got on the call. So I have the jacket ready to go on. Yeah.
I'm learning some pointers here. I need to start doing that.
Yeah.
Clip-on tie. Yeah. Just
yeah.
So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up our first episode. I know for me, I have learned, where my pet's going to be during this meeting, right? Where my pet's going to be. I have to warn my husband so that the camera will be on, so he understands what that means. What about you guys?
Definitely checking in with my daughter, making sure she doesn't come running out of her room and, hey, Mom, in the middle of a meeting. That's probably, or my husband, that's probably my biggest thing.
Yeah, one of my big scares is that I'll be in a meeting, as a participant, and I forgot to mute the mic or the camera. And then I do something that I'm not supposed to, and it's like, oh man, I'm always conscientious about that, making sure that my mic or camera are turned off.
Mm-hmm. And I would say for me, I've actually come up with some hand signals, right? So when my kids go through the door, this means like stop what you're doing. And this means turn around and go back out until we're done. But most of the time I do let them on just to ask the question and say hi. And after that, they seem to kind of, go about their business. But if they're kids, they need to ask a question, answer the question. I can always kind of pause right here. Hey guys, hang on just a second, answer the question, and then kind of continue.
I like that. The hand signs are good. I usually just do the kind of the dad look where I just kind of go, and then they I learned it. You got to watch I like James's lighting. So I'll just say, watch your lighting. Cause like sometimes like this light here, I'm way too bright, right? I just can't have that. So having good lighting, good microphones, those good little tips too. If you can, not everyone can do that. And sometimes you just have to kind of find a corner somewhere, but that's kind of one of my tips too.
All right, guys, here until the next cup.
See ya.
Cheers.
See ya.